Hello everybody, how's it going today? Glowplasma here about Kagurabachi, chapter number 108. This chapter is titled Enten versus Magatsumi, and I'm going to give you one guess about what this chapter is about. We see the clash of Chihiro's enchanted blade, the Enten, and Soga Akimura's Magatsumi in this chapter. Wow, it's, Hokuzono, good chapter title, I'll give it to you. This one was just solid, it gets straight to the point, and honestly, I just want to get straight to the point in this video and talk about what happened last time in Kagurabachi. As it was this whole chapter about Chihiro had finally gotten his resolve to face off against his uncle to fight the man, the myth, the legend, Soga Akimura himself. And very quickly in the last chapter, Chihiro got a massive slice down his right shoulder that really pretty much rendered him, incapable of fighting for the rest of the chapter, as of course Samura went through and started dealing with Akimura the only way that he knew how, and that was with a sword. And of course, eventually, Akimura is just way too much for Samura, ended up taking him out at the end of the day, and along with that, as Samura is on the ground, Akimura getting ready to slice his head off, well, Chihiro arrives, and Soga's like, "Oh, you're here." Sends a spider his way, of course trying to immobilize Chihiro. But Chihiro takes one small step for Kagurabachi in one of my favorite one of my favorite video titles that I've made in a long time. As no, it just doesn't do anything, as Chihiro just keeps on moving, using Nishiki to block out the power of the Magatsumi, of course getting to the point of the whole idea that the Enten is the one enchanted blade that can take out the Magatsumi, that can beat Soga Akimura. And that's where we ended last chapter of Kagurabachi, on this note of Chihiro used the EI White Purity style, got right into Akimura's face, and yeah, the two of them are getting ready to face off here in the moment. And we start off this chapter legitimately right after where last chapter ended. We don't even see, Chihiro getting up there, ready to put the blade right next to Akimura. No, simply what we see is the aftermath of this strike happening, as Akimura is just standing there really unfazed, as he starts to go on this little bit of a thing about samurai. He's like, "To a samurai, life is no more fuel we burn for our ideal world. If two samurais' goals are different, then we fight to the death. There's nothing more about it. But Chihiro, you're my sister's son. If possible, I'd prefer not to kill you." And of course, to this, Chihiro's like, "No, I have to stop you. Fighting is my only option." And of course, here in the moment, we get a sort of a bit of a bigger thing on the whole idea of of course, we now finally have the confirmation in the manga itself. It is said by Akimura, hey, Chihiro is his wife, or is not his wife, his sister's husband. Akimura's sister married Kunishige. The two of them have a child, that's Chihiro, and of course, we knew this, we'd put this together before, but this is finally that big confirmation, finally just telling us, hey, this is what it is in the manga. I know there's been a lot of discourse about this with Viz and not translating properly and all of this, but it's finally said we never have to think about this fact again. And what's really funny is after this happens, after Chihiro's like, "No, I'm going to stop you, you're an evil guy," the two of them skyrocket into the sky. Wow, who would have thought that they're skyrocketing? They pretty much jump off the ground, and the jump that they do makes this massive shockwave all over the ground, rippling through the destroyed building where Soga was fighting with Samura last chapter. And what's just really funny to me is the way that Samura's body just flies up into the air, he almost ragdolls, as this force just happens in between Chihiro and Akimura. But of course, at this point, we finally get the chapter title, Enten versus Magatsumi. As we see, Chihiro he's facing off against Akimura in the sky. And Akimura is holding the Magatsumi, and as he's holding it, the blade is almost resonating with this frequency. As of course, we know this frequency is big in the idea of, hey, the enchanted blade being destroyed, being beaten, as we just see it in the moment, as Soga just thinks, of course, to what Chihiro said a few chapters ago, of to destroy the enchanted blades. That's my goal. And the two of them land on rubble in the sky, and as this rubble is all falling, Akimura just looks over to Chihiro, being like, "Hey, kid, don't attempt the impossible. You also aren't fully healed, are you?" As of course Chihiro sort of reaches over his hand to his shoulder, his right shoulder that got split open last chapter, and we see that while it is healed, it's not fully healed, and we see Samura laying on the ground, the flames of Suzaku barely burning around his body. As we start off with the first batch of narration for this chapter, and let me tell you, there is a lot of narration. As it just starts, against the Magatsumi's power to continuously consume life force, Suzaku's restorative powers hardly stem the tide. There's a limit to its effect against the Shinuchi's cataclysmic power. As the Shinuchi, the true striker, the Magatsumi is in a different class from the other enchanted blades, which this is a little bit of an interesting thing. Not only do we have a very cool visual of a crow wing and like all of the feathers with like flowers sprouting out of them, of course, like, hey, the birds of Suzaku and Tobimune versus the flowers of the Magatsumi. It's pretty like a little bit of a cool visual there. But also, like, as the Shinuchi, the true striker, I don't think we've ever like heard it be called the true striker before. Like, it easily just could be forgetting something that was said during the Rakuzaichi arc, but I just strictly do not remember that, right? But either way, Samura's on the ground and he's looking up at Chihiro, and of course he didn't know that Chihiro got hurt in this way, as Suzaku flames just stem up all around the wound that Chihiro had, healing it here in the moment. And Samura is on the ground and flowers start to sprout out of him. He's taking the Suzaku that was keeping him alive and trading it and giving it to Chihiro instead. As Akimura notices this and looks down at Samura and just thinks like, hey, Samura's already at his limit, just trying to maintain the status quo. On top of that, he only applies the barest minimum of Suzaku to himself. Instead, he's using his powers to heal Chihiro. As Akimura just looks down and out loud just says, you're really heading inexorably towards death. And Samura just remembers the moment Akimura on the tower during the Seitai War, and all of the blade wielders just trying their best. As Samura just barely says, I'm making a wager. As he just thinks, we weren't able to stand on the same field as you. As we get more narration. The Enten's ability to dispel the Magatsumi's life-draining power. Because the Enten was forged to counter the malediction, it's the only sword capable of taking on the Magatsumi. In an arena dominated by the Shinuchi, he is the only one who dances freely. As we get this really cool panel of Akimura just standing here on all of this rubble flying through the sky, and we see all of these black Kuro goldfish, or actually, I'm guessing that these are more red goldfish because what I take is about to happen here, or sort of what I'm about to explain, is we see all these goldfish heading towards Akimura, and all these goldfish are ones that Chihiro is about to teleport to, copying the ability of Akka, of Crow, of Tobimune's power, pretty much. So, of course, I'm guessing these are actually red goldfish, but they're drawn black in the manga, so it sort of is like, oh, is this Kuro, when I don't really think it is. As we just see Nishiki is, like, flowing out from Chihiro's eyes, as Chihiro's like, it's time to fulfill my mission. As we get really what just should be considered a 2-page spread, as Akimura is just looking at Chihiro, and Chihiro teleports to behind Akimura, swinging his sword, teleports again, but every time Akimura is there to counteract Chihiro. As Chihiro just thinks, like, even after facing Samura at his best, the Swordmaster's completely unscathed. His reaction speed is completely off the charts. As there's another goldfish swimming around, Akimura sees it, and Chihiro teleports to it. Too late, as Akimura is already pointing the Magatsumi at Chihiro and declares, Dragonfly. And Chihiro just looks and he's like, oh, Akka! And as he says this, Chihiro is sent flying into all of this other rubble, as Akimura, he fires off the Dragonfly in the moment. And of course, like, Akimura doesn't know what all of the abilities of Enten are, so whenever he's just like, Akka, he's like, what is this, like, red? Like, what is this kid talking about? And he just thinks like, oh, a defensive technique? And as Akimura is very confused about this, we get some more narration. Akka allows Chihiro to absorb the foe's powers and wield them as his own. Through that process, he discovers how they function. Apparently, the Magatsumi's power isn't complex. It activates by channeling black energy into various forms. Those forms are infinite in number, which is just absolutely insane, being like, he can have pretty much any, like, insect-named ability he could want. Like, of course, we know centipede, we know dragonfly, butterfly, and spider, and next chapter we will be learning a fifth, but, like, he can have anything. They're infinite. Like, that is just mind-boggling, just from a perspective of if Akimura can think of it, he can pretty much damn well do it with his enchanted blade. As the narration just continues, even with Dragonfly, which requires barely an interval, its force is so intense that Akka can't fully absorb it. And as we get this narration, it's also like from the perspective that Chihiro may be thinking it as well. As we now go back into Chihiro's thoughts, as he's just like, that probably was Suzaku at its limit, pretty much. If I sustain another critical wound, then this battle is just over. And Chihiro continues to think like, hey, it seems that the Magatsumi's fundamental irregularities could be dispelled, but when its powers condense into shockwaves and slashing attacks, that doesn't seem to hold true. In which case, what's likely happening is that unlike the Enten's Kuro, which fires a big slashing attack, the Magatsumi slashes through space itself. As a result, there's almost no lag after Akimura swings the blade. If his attack is even a millimeter off, when it moves through mid to long range distances, that gap grows, making it extremely hard to read. As we get sort of a diagram that just shows all of this, like, hey, the difference between the Kuro from the Enten and, of course, Butterfly, which just goes through and slashes space itself. Like, hey, it doesn't matter if something's in the way or anything. At the moment he swings that blade, that interval happens in a brief second, of course, as we will be getting here in a second. As Chihiro just continues, its slashes are impossible to evade. It even took down Samura, which I honestly find it interesting that throughout this entire chapter, Chihiro doesn't call him Mr. Samura anymore. It's always just Samura, which is a little bit of an interesting observation there. But either way, Akimura takes the blade, swings it, and declares Butterfly. And as he does, Chihiro is stuck here on the ground, looking up in the moment. As we get some narration, from the moment he swings his blade, the time it takes the slash to race through space is so infinitesimal, the world instantaneous almost fails to capture it. When the attack is about to strike, when the air whispers, Chihiro's eyes are able to perceive it. The blade's pathway is revealed. As we just see Chihiro like kneeling on rock here in the moment, and the blade being slashed, and Chihiro, his eyes barely able to tell where everything is headed. As he just looks, and we get another one of these panels where it's like Chihiro's face, and then a diagonal line drawn through it, just showing us the offset of the ability of the Magatsumi and how like just devastating it truly is. As in the moment, we see it goes through, racking so much destruction, tearing apart buildings, doing all of this. And we also just see the trail of Nishiki, as Akimura is standing here, and Chihiro is able to come through and grab the enchanted blade. He takes it right next to Akimura's face, and it just nicks him simply on the side of his face. We get a little bit of a splink sound effect as the blade just goes through and cuts him right under his eye. And Samura on the ground, of course, sees it. He's like, what? He reacted to Butterfly, to the Sword Master. Chihiro and the Enten they're a real threat. As here in the moment, we see that Samura is just looking up, as Akimura's like, pardon me, I see Chihiro, so it appears that you are also a samurai. As he comes through and just wipes the blood from right underneath his eye, and then just turns, taking the enchanted blade and slashing Chihiro now into his left shoulder. And as this happens, Chihiro starts falling to the ground as Akimura goes again, and the attack hits the Enten. And Chihiro starts falling to the ground and reaches his hand out towards Akimura, as he's like, no, I still didn't grasp his unparalleled genius, his untouchable mastery of the sword. as Akimura comes in with one more slice, and Chihiro holds up the Enten to block it. And as he does, the blade shatters. Enten broken into pieces. And as this happens, Chihiro looks at the stump of the blade, and he just hears the sounds of the workshop whenever him and his father were crafting it. The clunk, ting, ba-dump, tang, tang. Just all of these sounds come flooding in to Chihiro's mind. As Akimura just reaches his hand and puts it on the left side of Chihiro's body. He's like, all right, the heart's on the left, right? As he then takes his enchanted blade, the Magatsumi, and pierces Chihiro straight through. And as he does, the Enten falls to the ground. And that's where we end this chapter of Kagurabachi. With once more, it doesn't seem like Chihiro's dead this time because Akimura, you know what? I'll give it to him. He made sure to keep the Japanese citizen alive, even if he was an enemy, but I guess more like a Japanese familial relationship here. But either way, this was an insane chapter, just seeing wow, Enten versus the Magatsumi. Enten just lost. We've seen this a few times, Enten versus Tobimune, Enten versus Cloud Gouger. And our MC, Chihiro, always comes out on top, but of course he couldn't win this battle. As it just comes through, I love the page wherever Chihiro is going through and using Aka Crow and just trying to hit Akimura, but Akimura is just he just knows what he's doing too much. And then the explanation of, hey, he can't fully absorb Dragonfly. The Magatsumi's abilities are infinite. There's just so many it can possibly have. And then the whole idea of it's not even an instantaneous from whenever he declares Butterfly to when the strike hits. Time has to be slowed down so much to a point where it almost doesn't matter. As soon as he swings that sword, the slash already happens. And Chihiro just being able to avoid it, a little busted and a little crazy. But at the end of the day, just an absolutely insane chapter of Kagurabachi. I know I say that every week, but oh my gosh, this was insane. The Enten is broken. Where can we go from here? And hey, that's really all I gotta say about this chapter of Kagurabachi. I know not too many final thoughts to be had on this one, but strictly, I just don't have a lot to say, But if you did enjoy this video, I've been covering Kagurabachi since chapter number 44 or something like that. There'll be a playlist linked down in the description box of this video, along with the end card of this video, with all of my other Kagurabachi videos. If you did enjoy this video, hey, let me know what you thought about it. It'd be pretty cool to get a comment, or maybe flame me for not knowing all my enchanted blade bears earlier. Who really knows? But yeah, with all that being said, thank you guys so very much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time for Kagurabachi chapter number 109. Until then, this is Glowplasma signing out.